to sue. Drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Stay.
Now you're more fluent.
He's got three!
Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the All American Hoops podcast, episode 39. And episode 39, I've been doing the past few weeks, the giving the numbers for each and for each person, or not each person, but giving an example. There's not really any for basketball, but number 39 on the Mets right now is currently Edwin Diaz. Mets are doing pretty damn well right now. They're just a half a game out of the playoff race, and hopefully they're playing relevant ball in September. So very happy about that. But before I start talking about more sports, hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. For those of you going back to school, best of luck. I'm a teacher myself, so I'm very excited to go back. Obviously, bum summer's over, but I'm very excited for a new school year. Kids, pay attention in class. Work hard, do your homework, behave well, all that stuff that all the teachers tell you. It's going to be great for you in the future. But we got a great show ahead of us today. Crunch Time from TikTok will be joining us. We're going to be comparing our all-time list. Both of our lists are quite different, so that'll be a very fun thing to see. And after that, we will be just talking about the contenders of the Eastern Conference. This is the All American Hoops podcast.
Hey, yo, can you hear me right now?
Welcome to the show. Crunch, can you hear me?
Yeah, bro, what's up? Can you hear me?
Hang on, give me 1 second. Just plug this real quick. Crunch, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Technical difficulties, apologies. Crunch, how about now?
I can hear you, bro. Can you hear me?
Okay, he just got booted out. So, welcome to the show. So I'm just going to start off without him, just because I want to get the show rolling. But so it's like I'm always fascinated by people's all-time lists and what goes into them, just because everyone has different criteria. I'll explain my criteria really quick. I gave my all-time list episode 2. I really haven't talked about it since. But let's see what we got here.
Yeah, bro. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what was happening.
No worries.
But I'm not picking back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was messed up on my end too. So all good. How's it going today?
It's going good, man. Thanks for having me on.
100%. We went live together on TikTok like a very long time ago. So looking forward to that. I know that both of us wanted to discuss our all-time lists. So just before we start going into each of our lists, do you want to maybe give your criteria as to what you think about when you make your all-time list?
Yeah, man. So basically, my criteria that I use eye test first. I'm looking at numbers second, and championships third. Because when it comes to accomplishments, I think a championship is the most important accomplishment. So yes, when I do eye test first, I'm basically looking at, with my eyes, the players on TV that impress me the most, that to me are the best basketball players, because I feel as though we all have to make an argument based on what the first thing we're watching when we, the first thing you do when you're watching basketball, you have to basically talk about what you're seeing. So then, can you hear me?
You cut out there for a second. You said you have to watch what you've seen first, and then you cut out after that. So if you want to continue on with that thought.
Oh, yeah. So then after that, I look at the numbers to see if the numbers back it up.
Absolutely.
Because you can have a good eye test and have bad numbers. So, well, not necessarily bad numbers, but a guy like Jamal Crawford is my example. Like, he has an amazing eye test. I would say A+ eye test. But you know, his numbers aren't, I wouldn't say superstar numbers. And you have to be a superstar, I believe, to be like top 10 or whatever. So, yeah, so after that, I look at, you know, of that collection of guys, you know, how much did you win? How important was your contribution to winning?
Yeah, you cut out there for a second there, but I'm pretty sure I got the gist of it. In which you said,
Yeah.
yeah, your contributions to winning is extremely important. Yeah, so not much to complain about there for your overall overall criteria. I know that some
Right.
people are going to disagree with that. I know that some people are going to disagree with the eye test part of it, which I don't necessarily disagree with it, just because like I do think that in order to like fully evaluate a player, you do need to watch some film. But the problem is a lot of people who do use that criteria don't actually watch the film and take a deep dive into it. So yeah, they kind of just do it based off vibes, which if you're deciding your favorite player, like be my guest in that. But if you're like building a team to win a championship, you need a little more than just doing what they call like doing what you said, eye test. So I know that when I'm coming up with my list, I basically just like to look at a little bit of everything. I like to look at contributions to winning. That's extremely important. I'll look at the numbers as well. I know that a lot of people don't like to use accolades, just because it's based on off other people's opinions. But however, I do think it's an important stamp of history. Like it really paints off your legacy, which I know is like can get like a little foggy. So I have no problem if you don't want to use them at all. And overall, longevity is slightly important as well. Because you could be great for like 3 or 4 years, but then just be not as great for the most of your career after that. So like a guy with Vince Carter has great longevity, but not a great peak. Bill Walton, awesome peak, but not good longevity at all. I guess he's not really a good example because he was only good for like 1 or 2 years. But or Derrick Rose would be a better example there. But so yeah, that's my thought process there. Do you have anything you agree with? Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, again, going off the and you kind of went in and out towards the end there, but I got saying.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, what would you do with a guy like somebody that's hard to rank for me is Kevin Durant.
Okay, so we'll talk about Kevin Durant in a minute, just because I want to talk about the top of our list first, and then we can take a deep dive after that. Okay. But so do you maybe want to give your top 5 first?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so my top 5, man. Yeah. My top 5 would be this, bro. I have Kobe Bryant. I had Michael Jordan. At number 3, Larry Bird, bro.
Okay.
Number 4, I'm gonna go with Stephen Curry. And number 5, Tim Duncan.
All right. So that's so obviously, as you know, you go live pretty much every week, probably even more often than that. Obviously, a lot of people disagree with your lists. I'm one of those people. I don't disagree with every part of that list, but there are some parts that I'm going to disagree with. And there you go there. So I'll get my list first, then we can start comparing. So I do have MJ at 1. I have LeBron at 2. I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at number 3. I have Larry Bird at 4, which I am shocked that there is actually somebody on this earth that has Larry Bird higher than I do. I thought that was the one thing that people would like. That was the one thing that I was alone on. That was going to have to die in that hill. And then number 5, I do have Magic Johnson. So it looks like the only person that we have MJ and Larry are the only 2 people that we have that are remotely similar, and not remotely similar, that are similar to our top 5. So so I guess, yeah, the first question is, why do you have Kobe over MJ all time?
Well, I think that Kobe had a harder path to victory, seeing as how he had to go through a rebuild. I do believe that he was slightly more skilled. Not saying that necessarily makes you a better player, but by him being more skilled, he used those skills to take down tougher competition, I believe. Because remember, he had to beat a super team in the finals. Now he was blessed to have Shaq, but I never held it against him because of the numbers that he put up at an early age. So Kobe Bryant to me was better than Michael Jordan at an earlier age. So when he was around 21 years old, 22 years old, I believe he was already an A+ basketball player on both sides of the floor. And so what he did was we went on a three-peat, and you can't blame him for having Shaq, because when he said he couldn't win without Shaq, he was able to kind of overlap everybody and win without Shaq with a lesser player than Shaq, because he went from a guy who was averaging 30 and 10 to now he has Pau Gasol averaging 19 or 20 and 10. So that's a lesser, like a tier below, literally.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I believe, and Pau is a great player, but it just kind of shows me what separates Kobe from all of the other perimeter players in the league at that point in time. So I can at least say he was the best perimeter player in the league for the 2000s, and he was dominant. Yeah, he dominated with that.
Yeah, I was going. Yeah, so that's not close to get him being the best perimeter player of the 2000s.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like if you argue guys like Duncan and Shaq are over him, at least I can say they aren't his position. And so you just kind of take that and compare that to Michael Jordan. It is very similar to me because Kobe almost three-peated twice. If he would have won in 2008, that's a second three-peat.
That's right.
But the thing is, I don't believe Jordan played necessarily a super team in the finals. You know what I mean? So unless you want to say kind of the Suns, I really like that Suns team from '93. Now, I'm not trying to slander Jordan. I just do. I grew up on Kobe also, so that's another thing. So for me to say all of this and how I'm going in detail, I'm pretty sure, people that watch Jordan seeing all the details that I probably missed out on. But I look at that and I really do think Kobe set himself apart. Not only that, he, passed Jordan in points, rebounds, and assists as far as totals.
Right.
He has a similar mentality, and so he was able to show that he can take the way how Jordan won and win in a more advanced era, which is sort of basically the way how, evolution goes. Like, that's pretty much what Kobe basically did what everything he could do to be in that position. Like, if anybody, in my opinion, is over Jordan, it would have to be Kobe. And I do believe that people used to have conversations about that when he was pretty much like on the tail end of his prime. They started talking about that. So, that's just me personally.
Yeah. So So a couple of things. Yeah, and I'll start off with the things that I agree with you on. So as I mentioned, I 100% agree with you that he was the best wing of the 2000s. I know that some people think that's like the tail end of the 2000s, LeBron overpassed him. You can maybe argue that like 2009 he was better, but that doesn't nearly cut it for the make up for the entire first half of the 2000s. And I also think that I know that a lot of people say that Shaq carried Kobe for the three-peats. I think that Shaq was the best player on those teams, but however, I think like once 2002, I think it was as close to his 1A and 1B as it is. Like, if you still want to argue Shaq just because he was the best player in the finals, Kobe up until that point was almost as good as Shaq. So, yes, so I'm helping your argument there. The one thing that I strongly disagree with is that you keep on mentioning that Kobe beat a super team in the finals, which MJ didn't. I do not think that the Celtics in 2010 were a super team by any stretch. Garnett wasn't even close to who he was at his time. After post 2009 knee surgery, he was good. I don't know if he was as good as Pau Gasol, and that's like during that season. Pierce and Allen were getting older. I would say Pierce was still like at like the tail end of his prime. Allen was slowing down. Rondo was just entering his prime. So very good team. I'm not telling you otherwise, but they were a 4th seed and just like declining a lot. So by no means a super team in my eyes. And I guess just the only thing with Kobe, he started. He was elite to start off his career, but it did take him a couple years, and you can't slide him too much to that because he did start when he was 18, 19 years old in the NBA. But I think if you're just nitpicking like the greatest of all time, his peak unbelievable, longevity also unbelievable. I just don't think his peak touches LeBron's and MJ's, and it just it just bothers me that in the middle of his prime he did miss the playoffs one year, which granted there was not much that he could do, given that given that he didn't really have that strong of a supporting cast and Phil Jackson was gone at the time. So that's just why like I don't have Kobe inside my top 5. And also the accolades, which I know like everyone knows there has accolades, but everyone in my top 5 has at least 2 MVPs. And one thing that Kobe has the edge over all those guys is the all defensive teams, which major props to him. But I also don't think he was as good as at defense as people say he was. He was still a great defender, but I just don't think he was as good as MJ, LeBron, or he was better than Bird and Magic. But I also think the Bird and Magic were the better offensive players.
That's tough.
Okay.
That was a great argument. That was a great argument.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, when it comes to my top five, I realized everybody in my top five basically stayed on their own teams to win, and they kind of had a dynasty type of thing going. Well, I would say mainly Larry Bird, Jordan, and Steph mainly had dynasties, like as far as on their own, like based off their own star power. Kobe had a dynasty early with Shaq, so it was because of both of those guys, and he was able to kind of win later on and win the back-to-back. But it's just hard to say that a back-to-back is a dynasty. But at the same time, it's tricky because, you know, that whole thing is still kind of connected, the Lakers from that era, like, you know, because Kobe was the common denominator. So it makes me think like, oh man, is that a dynasty by himself, 5 rings? But, you know, and then also Tim Duncan. But he never three-peated, but he won consistently for his whole era. So the Spurs were known as a dynasty for that era. Yeah. So, so yeah, I mean, you know, I like LeBron, but it just, I had him in my top 3. But Steph is confusing me right now because I'm starting to feel like Steph might surpass him. You know what I mean? So if Steph does that, if I put Steph past LeBron, that is why I did more research on Larry Bird, because Larry Bird, I believe, really dominated the 1980s, bro. And people don't talk about it enough.
No, they do
people
not.
Don't talk about it enough, man.
Nope. So why is Steph over LeBron because of the rings, or like, and because he beat him a couple times in the finals?
Well, that makes me to that is what makes me start to look at it, but it's mainly his impact on the game as a whole. On top of that, you know what I mean? Now, obviously, you know, he doesn't have Klay Thompson this year. See, I do change my list a lot. So let's say he doesn't have Klay now. You know, something bad happens. You know, something could happen that would like reveal, oh, he can't do something without Klay. And then, you know, maybe I'll put LeBron back over him. Or maybe if LeBron does something else. But I don't know, bro. It's I guess I just have to see when they both retire, you know, who has what.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that later if we have the time. But yeah, like I'm just like Clay's still an elite shooter, and he has been for a little bit, but I just don't think he's the same player he is anymore. So I'm not sure how much his absence is going to really affect the Warriors. Also, given how trash they were last year, so maybe it'll be like a little addition by subtraction thing if I'm right about him, which I really don't believe in him at all. Yeah. So okay. So then why don't you give your 6 through 10?
So my 6 through 10, what's numbers? Oh, I have LeBron James at number 6.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I have Wilt Chamberlain 7.
Okay.
I had Magic Johnson 8. You hear me?
Okay, you cut out at number 8.
Him?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but yeah, you cut out at number 8? Can you go 8 through 10 again?
Yeah, I have Wilt Chamberlain 7. I have so LeBron James 6, Wilt 7. Yes. I have Magic Johnson 8.
Magic's 8, okay.
Magic 8, and I have this is tough. This is so tough. So I'm gonna have to put. Damn it, bro! I can't do it, bro.
No.
So there's 3 centers. There's 3 centers now. Obviously, I haven't said Kareem yet.
Okay.
And then you have Hakeem and Shaq.
Right. Okay. So yeah, between those 3 guys, but for 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I have a relatively similar, not 6 through 10, but like guys to round out the top 10, I should say. So 6. So at 6, I have Bill Russell. At 7, I have Tim Duncan. At 8, I have Shaq. At 9, I have Kobe. So yeah, big difference there. And at 10, I have Steph Curry. So Yeah, so why don't we dive into the three centers actually, because I feel like that's actually going to be where we have a more productive conversation as to where we can find common ground. So why is Kareem much lower on your list than others? Like most, I feel like he's consensus number 3 to most people, but why is he so low on yours?
I believe that Kareem, he's a great player. I just think that he had a lot of help along the way, and it's not even like a slight to him. It's just I think he had a lot of help because he with and now this is like, first let me say his odds test and his numbers are pretty much legit. But if I'm measuring his championships against a guy like LeBron James, I think LeBron James had less help than Kareem. From a standpoint of the contribution that LeBron had on his team. Like when Kareem went to the Lakers, he was dominant for like those first few years. But after that, I would say Magic was a huge reason why they were winning. Matter of fact, they weren't really winning until Magic came over there, and then he only won 1 ring in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You hear me?
That's I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. And I agree. Yeah, that's my issue with Kareem as well. Yeah. So between his peak, because I know that Chilltown uses like he thinks that Kareem is like has a good argument because he thinks that Kareem, if you include high school and college, that he that he's probably the best player of all time because he's the best high school player of all time and one of the two best college players of all time. But if we're just concluding the NBA career, he dominated the 70s, best player of the 70s, hands down. But that was also during an era where half the best players in the world were playing in the ABA. So he dominated that era, but he also wasn't winning championships. He only won 1 in the 70s, right? If I'm not mistaken. I think. Do you know that off your heart?
He was on 1.
Yeah, it was only 1 because he won 5 with the Lakers. The first one was 1980. That's right. So yeah, only 1 with the Bucks. So like that's my biggest problem is I also think that he was the best player in 1980, the year the Magic won Finals MVP. I think that Kareem was the best player, even though he didn't play in Game 7 or whatever the closeout game was. So that's my issue with Kareem. It's why I don't have him as the GOAT or even the second best, but I do have him as the third, just because his longevity is above and beyond everyone else's besides LeBron. So that's why I do have him third. But if you're asking me who's better at their peak, I do think that Shaq was much better, and I do think that Hakeem also has an argument against him as well.
You can hear?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
My phone over here.
Okay. Yeah, did you hear my last part about Kareem? I think that Kareem has an argument to be. I think that he's really third, but as we're talking peaks, I think that Shaq and Hakeem are debatably better. Okay, he's cutting out there. Once Crunch gets back to the space, we'll reconnect with him. But I'll give my 11 through 15 for now, and we'll circle back to it once he comes back in. But my 11 through 15, I actually haven't mentioned this before. This is the first time I'm talking about it on the pod. I've mentioned it on TikTok before, obviously, but not on Twitter, but not on the pod. So at number 11, and I've been back and forth about 11 and 12 for a while now. At 11, I do have Hakeem Olajuwon. At 12, I do have Will Chamberlain. At 13, I have Dr. J. At 14, I have Kevin Durant. And at 15, I have the late, great Jerry West. So, yeah, I mentioned that your peak is what's most important, but also you do need some longevity, which is why I do have Hakeem down a couple notches. Hakeem just doesn't have the championships, or he has 2 championships. He doesn't have it compared to others, though. He only has the 1 MVP. He also his longevity wasn't that great.
Yeah, sorry about that. You hear me, right?
I can hear you now. Absolutely. So yeah, I was just in the middle. Yeah, so I just gave my 11 through 15, but we're going to circle back to that later. Right. So yeah, I basically just gave my take on Kareem. I think that I think he's the third best player of all time, but however, I don't think he has a top 5 peak all time. Like I mentioned, I do think that Shaq and Hakeem do have arguments over him. Why don't you give your take on that?
You say you have Shaq over him?
So peak, we're talking like strictly peak your powers, like
Peak.
your 3-year peak. I do think that Shaq is better than him, and I also think that Hakeem has an argument.
So peak wise, yeah, man, and that's what does it for me for Kareem as well. His best years was in the 70s, like you said. Now another thing is players were voting for those MVPs.
That's right.
You know, you look at the 70s. The 70s had a lot of great players, and I asked some people that watch 70s basketball about guys like George Gervin, Pistol Pete, like a lot of guys that were fans of the NBA at that time. Some people like those guys as well. So it wasn't like because nobody was necessarily having like a dynasty to where you have to put
George Gervin never made a finals, but he's one of the most underrated players of all time.
facts. And but Kareem, so again, for him to only win that one ring during that era with Oscar Robertson, I think that he had, a little bit more help than some guys, because Oscar Robertson at that point in time was pretty much known as like one of the best, if not the best point guard of all time.
Right.
And then you can say the same thing with Magic Johnson. So he kind of had those guys for his rings. When you look at his peak, again, he missed the playoffs a little bit in those years, even when he kind of had pieces. And Hakeem Olajuwon, if I'm not mistaken, he beat him in the finals before.
Kareem?
Not the finals, the Western Conference Finals.
Maybe in '86, probably, because the Celtics beat the Rockets in '86. So probably, yeah.
Yeah, so he got outplayed by Hakeem. I know he's kind of on his last, like a little bit older, but
right, yeah.
That's why I kind of give Hakeem some respect, because he stepped up and did that early in his career, though. And then Shaq, Shaq's peak, bro, just amazing, bro. Like, wow. Like, I really want to put Shaq in my top 10. I probably have to, bro. Excuse me. I probably have to because of that stretch that because again, I'm a Kobe fan, but I can't take away any credit from what Shaq did, because that would make it even more crazy that he's averaging 40 in the finals. If you have somebody like Kobe on the team too, like that makes it even more crazy. So, matter of fact, I'm putting Shaq top 10, bro.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time taking your list seriously. And this isn't you. This is anyone. Like, if you don't have Shaq at the very least, and I have Shaq at 8. I have a hard time placing him any lower. I'd be Russell and Tim Duncan slightly ahead of him. But I have zero problem if you want to have Shaq at 6. Even if maybe 4, maybe top 4 is a little pushing it, but however, I think besides MJ and LeBron at the very. No, even including LeBron. I feel like besides MJ, you could argue that 2000 2002 Shaq is the best player of all time besides MJ. That's what I think.
Man, you can really make that take, bro. And it was just unstoppable, bro. Like,
Absolutely. Teams were signing players who were dog crap on offense just to foul the shit out of Shaq. That's how good he was. So. And then we can finish off with 11 through 15. And this is what I messaged you in the email before the show, because I know that I think the way you round off your top 15 is very interesting. Because I used to be a big fan of both those. I still am a big fan of both those players, like based on the way they play, but maybe not so much as overall a fan of them. But 11 through 15. So you gave me your 11. Your 11 is either Kareem or Hakeem. But how about 12 through 15?
So number 12, I have Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
Number 13, I'm gonna have Dirk Nowitzki.
Okay.
At number 14, I have Jerry West. And that or you can really flip flop that as well. I might want, but I'll leave it like I just said it though. And then so at number 15, I have Kyrie Irving.
Okay. So a lot we disagree with there. So I'll go after both the. Okay. You know what? Actually, I'll give my 11 through 15 first, and then I'll explain where I have the players that you listed. So 11, I have Hakeem. 12, I have Will Chamberlain. We didn't talk about Wilt, but we can go back to that later if we have enough time. But yes, yeah. So we have 5 different spots there. 13, I have Dr. J. 14, I have Kevin Durant. And 15, I have Jerry West. So Jerry West, we're neck and neck on. You have him slightly ahead than I do, but I have zero issue if you want to include him like a spot or two higher. Isaiah Thomas, I used to have him in my early top 20s, but I did inch him back a little bit, mainly just because of he wasn't really winning a ton early in his prime, and then he started winning really where the team became really defensive focused, and he was like the only elite offensive player, but even then, like there were just some games that he put up absolute disaster classes, and then the team still won without him. So, but yeah, Dirk's a little high for me too, but I do have him in like my early 20s probably. I went up not early 20s, probably in like my late teens. So yeah, so not that much further. Kyrie is where we strongly disagree with though. So yeah, I do have Kyrie outside my top 75, which I know a lot of people do. So if you whoever you want to talk about, you want to talk about Isaiah or Kyrie first, whichever one you can do that.
I mean, so Isaiah, I think he's top 3 point guard ever. I think that Isaiah Thomas also. I'm looking at the fact that his influence is still on the game today. I think he influenced a lot of the smaller guards today. So people talk a lot about Magic's influence. I do think Isaiah Thomas's influence is underrated. He was an elite scorer, skilled player, but he was pretty much a pass first player. So that's why he was able to kind of do both in a way that was so conducive to winning. And he was the engine of that offense. The competition he had to beat to win his rings. I mean, he won 2 rings. So he went to 3 finals, I believe, won 2 rings, and he built that dynasty from the ground up by getting drafted to the Pistons early in the 80s and winning late in the 80s in 1990. And so he had to beat Larry Magic, Kareem, and Jordan. He was beating Jordan over and over and over again. I mean, Jordan could not figure out how to beat Isaiah Thomas.
Yep.
The Pistons had a lot of pieces on the team, but they were led by Isaiah Thomas. And I also found out that when the top 50 of all time greatest list came out in 1996, Joe Dumars pretty much didn't make the team, so he didn't make the top 50. So that would prove that that just shows that IT didn't like he had less help technically if you want to compare him to guys like Magic or even Jordan, because Scottie made that top 50 list and Joe Dumars didn't make it. So man, I'm looking at his skill set, and when it comes to handles and being unguardable, he wasn't on the same level as Jordan like in the late 80s, but it was a few guys in the league that were unguardable, and I think Jordan and Isaiah Thomas were both in that category, man, because you couldn't really it was nobody that can kind of stay in front of Isaiah, and he was a great finisher. He was a better passer than Jordan, though. So honestly, he was a smarter, better all-around player than Jordan at first, in my opinion.
Yeah, Isaiah was probably better than Jordan. For the early part of the 80s. I guess Jordan wasn't out until 84. So maybe the first couple years in his career, but I definitely think Jordan overtook that just because he was so dominant. And yeah, everything, most of what you said about Isaiah was right. It is super impressive that he won multiple rings without a top 50 or 75 player initially. Because I know that for the top 75, Dennis Rodman did make that a list after that, which I disagree with, by the way. I don't think you should have made that list. But yeah, my issue as I mentioned with Isaiah, my only issue is just that they won because of their defense, not because of their offense. And Isaiah was not one of the best defensive players on their team. He carried that offense. Don't get me wrong, for some of those games, but for a lot of those games, especially at the back end of his career, he really was inefficient, putting up single-digit scoring games. The only elite game that he had late in his career was the game where he broke his leg, and then that was a masterclass without a doubt. So I do understand Isaiah, but as what you mentioned about Isaiah's impact is without a doubt correct. How about Kyrie?
So Kyrie, just like Isaiah, man, a small point guard, I believe. I look at it if I'm just looking at the trajectory of his career, from his perspective, you know what I'm saying? He comes in the league, you know what I mean? I can say, honestly, eye test wise, to me, he's the most skilled point guard I've ever seen. His numbers do back it up, because when you look at it, he's pretty much averaged 20 plus on almost 50, 40, 90 for basically 12 to 13 years now, except for that year in 2016 when he was coming off injury and he was rehabbing. So his numbers check out. And he does have the skill set to be in this conversation. Now, when he won his championship, he outplayed Stephen Curry, who a lot of people are having him in greatest point guard of all time conversations right now. Right. Kyrie Irving had to outplay him in pretty much his 5th season, and pretty much play on the level of a championship point guard alongside LeBron James, who LeBron James, again, he wanted to play with Kyrie Irving. You know, his talent was able to attract LeBron James to come play in a small market, man. Think about that. So he was able to attract superstars to come play in a small market team to come play with him in Cleveland.
Right.
His legacy is basically cemented because of what he was able to be a part of. He was blessed to be a part of. So because LeBron, now I know LeBron had a big hand in that championship, but Kyrie at the end of the day is a part of history for that. And so his legacy goes on after his performance. Now he was able to go to the finals again with Luka Doncic. Now that is where it pretty much solidified it for me that he's top 15, because it shows how long he's been in his prime, for one, and it shows that he is really a great competitor, man. Like, I mean, with everything happening in Brooklyn, a lot of people thought he was never going to the finals again, but he got to the finals before Kevin Durant.
That's right. Wow,
So,
I never thought about that. Wow, I made the finals before Durant. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, like, I don't think that that definitely isn't a factor for me, simply because, like, I do care about what you do as a second option, especially if you're like a dominant team. Then I do care about what you do as a second option, because you're why they're so dominant. But the Mavs were not a dominant team. They were a team that got hot at the right time. Luka was above and beyond the best player. Like, he really carried them during the regular season, especially when Kyrie was out for long. But yeah, my issue with Kyrie is outside of his LeBron years, and then this year with the Mavs, he's been a disappointment. And I'm not going to use his pre-LeBron years against him like a lot of people do, because he was 19, 20, and 21 before LeBron got there, and his team got better every year. So, like, that's an argument for him being higher than what people say. So, I don't think it's fair. I think the way that some people, especially LeBron fans, talk about Kyrie is a little unfair. And then obviously greats in 2015 until he got hurt. 2016, unbelievable finals, 41 in game 6, 20 something in game 7. Or was it game 5? I think it was game 5. They did 40 something. We have 40. Just absolutely unbelievable. 2017 is actually one of the more underrated seasons from him. He played great in the finals, and like you mentioned, there's an argument that he outplayed Steph in the 2017 finals. I'm not sure if that's the case, but there's definitely an argument. But since then, he's been a disappointment in pretty much every year up until this year. 2018 injured, 2019, not all of his fault, but like the locker room fell apart, and then he totally sold, like in the playoffs. I don't know if he sold or if he just totally gave up, but he was checked out, and he as the number one option just completely disappointed. 2020 hurt the entire year. 2021, or not the entire year, but you know what I mean. For the majority of the year. 2021, again injured. 2022, what did you do in 2020? 2022 COVID year, and then swept by Tatum and Brown. 2023, 2020. What do you do in 2023? Oh, 2023 with the Nets, and then of course the trade with the Mavs, and then the Mavs don't make the playoffs because he's injured. 2024 makes the finals. So if you're doing this on like a per game basis, I think let me make this clear on this, because you're using eye test. If you're using eye test, Kyrie, and I've always said this, if I'm going to if I want to introduce basketball to someone and then they say you have to show me a player's highlight reel to convince me, I think that Kyrie is near the top of the list for who you want to highlight reel for, because he's so fun to watch, without a doubt. But if we're just looking at his whole body of work, he's a lot of fun to watch, but just not even close to being a top 15 player to me. If we're talking about contributing to winning year after year after year. Played awesome with LeBron and fit well with LeBron. And like, I know a lot of people say anyone can fit with LeBron. Kyrie fit near flawlessly with LeBron, so I have no problem with that there. But just whole body work, Kyrie just doesn't do it for me. I don't know if you cut out there for a second. If you're anything to say there, Crunch? Or I don't know if you're done there. Oh, he's out. Okay. I guess he didn't like what I had to say about Kyrie. Kidding. I'm assuming it was because of the Wi-Fi issues. But okay. So, but he has Kyrie 15th all time. There's just not an argument for it, unless you're going to use that boy nice arguments as that, like using, like as he mentions, the eye test. Eye test is important. Don't get me wrong, but you need to do a little more for your body work in order to be considered near the top of the list for me for Kyrie. So that's my issue with Kyrie. And I'll talk about and I'll talk about the rest of my list. So it's just 16 to 20, just because I want to let me just address the comments. Someone mentioned does have Kyrie over Chris Paul. I know that some people do because they're ring. I strongly disagree with it. I think that's Chris Paul is much better than Kyrie all time. If we're talking what he did as number one option, Chris Paul brought his team, has multiple playoff wins as the number one option, number one playoff series. Never made the conference finals outside of, you can debate 2021, which 2021 he played better than Devin Booker against the Nuggets in this conference semifinals, but I also think that Devin Booker was a better overall player, so I can't use that. I can't use that argument fully for Chris Paul, but if we're nitpicking, that's one thing to mention. So that was actually a good. I'm happy about Chris Paul because I was the 6 people on right now. I'm wondering what you guys felt about Chris Paul versus the other guys like Russell Westbrook, Dwayne Wade, and was it Westbrook, Wade, Harden. So yeah, Harden and Chris Paul were teammates for a while. Harden was the better player. Same thing with Harden and Russ. So that's an interesting perspective there. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what you all thought about that, and I'll address that if anyone has anything to say about that. But we've got about 10 minutes. Yeah, if Crunch comes back, we'll readjust those points. But if not, that's fine. I'll talk about the rest of my top 20 just so we can finish that part off, and then we can also just for like the last 10 minutes of the show, I'll talk about the contenders for each conference. So at 16, I do have the Big O. He mentioned the Big O playing with Kareem. That's very important. After that, I do have at 17. I have Nikola Jokic. I think he surpassed a lot of these guys this past year with his MVP. 3 MVPs and a ring as overall best player does it for me. So I did have Moses Malone there before, but I do think that Nikola Jokic overpassed him for that. Yeah, so I do have Moses Malone at 18. I do have Kevin Garnett at 19 and Dirk Nowitzki at 20. So yeah, I did say Nowitzki in the late teens, early 20s. So yeah, I do have him at number 20. I think the Dirk versus KG is one of the more underrated, interesting arguments in sports because they played nearly the same amount of time. Dirk won Finals MVP. Garnett didn't. Garnett has the Defensive Player of the Year. Garnett was hands down the better two-way player. Dirk was the better offensive player. Garnett obviously the better defense player. I do think that Garnett was debatably the better playmaker, though. I think he's the better passer than Dirk. So that's one of the more underrated debates, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll talk about that another day. But yeah, I guess we'll finish it off. We'll talk about contenders. We're near the end of the offseason. It's crazy how time flew by. It feels like yesterday that me, John, Matt, and Matt were we were celebrating the Celtics NBA Finals victory. So as fun as that was, and as fun as it is, as it has been gloating, I'm also excited to go back into the regular season now, and so the boys can run it back again, and I think they will. So yeah, this obviously the Celtics are one of the contenders. Not one of the contenders. They are the main contender, like the overwhelming favorite to win the East. There's been a lot of talk about Tatum and Brown, as there always is. How are they going to do with each other? How are they going to react to this ring? Will one of them try to hijack the offense? I think it's nonsense. They just won a ring, and it's what they care about the most. I know that some people's priorities change once they win a ring. They're both extremely competitive, and I don't think that they're going to want to see who can do better. They got their ring. They got their payday. They just want to play basketball now, and I really don't think they're just going to go on the whole I had my ring now, so I'm going to try to prove everyone how good I am. Everyone knows how good they are. I should say everyone knows how good. Those that matter know how good they are, but that's why they gave them a boatload of money. They have their ring. Nothing else matters. You want to talk about accolades? They already have accolades too. If Jalen wants to make first team All NBA, I don't think he's probably not good enough for that. But I also don't think that he's going to necessarily try to overtake Tatum in every single game just because of that. So yeah, like I'm very, very confident in the Celtics. But one thing I will say is one thing I'm actually very excited for, underrated aspect of it. One thing I'm very excited about the Celtics and is actually how they're going to react to the Porzingis injury. I'm obviously not excited that Porzingis is injured, but I'm excited that their backup by committee is going to be very interesting. Al Horford's going to be the starting center without a doubt, but their backup center by committee is going to be very, very interesting, and I'm very excited for this. We have Luke Kornet, Xavier Tillman, and Nemes Keita. All three of those guys I think can be very fun. So it can be it's going to be very interesting, very fun. Will Cornett played the most minutes as like the backup center last year when Porzingis was injured. Played very good defense on Joel Embiid. Filled his role really well. A great offensive rebounder. Didn't really play well. Didn't really play a lot in the finals against the Mavs just because it really didn't match up well with Derek Lively, and even when he had set screens for Luka, not good at that. So, but as far as goes for like matching up with other bigs, he played awesome. Speaking of matching up well with like the Mavs, Xavier Tillman got minutes when Porzingis got injured, and it was perfect. Xavier Tillman is a very versatile defender. You can't really guard the bigs as well as Cornett or Keita can. But if another team is going either small ball or you're just doing a bunch of pick and rolls, Xavier Tillman's going to be your guy. And he's also the best shooter between the three of them. So I think Tillman gets at least 10, 15 minutes a night with the Celtics for the first until Christmas at least. So I was happy with the Tillman trade, but once he contributed to that finals, I'm very, very happy that happens. I don't know what they would have done. They probably would have given those minutes to Shea Brissett, which wouldn't have necessarily been a bad thing, but but I don't think that he would have done as well in defense. So I think a friend of the show, Noah Dazell, mentioned she thinks that game 3 of the finals was like the Xavier Tillman game, and I 100% agree. It was the Drew Holiday game first, but obviously Xavier Tillman played fantastic as well. And so very happy that someone like that contributed to the finals. And then the last guy, Nemes Keita. I don't know if he was a rookie last year or the year before. I'm going to check that up real quick. I wish I had a producer of the show that I can have them check back to that right away. But when Keita played last year, he wasn't bad at all. Like there was a time where people wanted him to play ahead of Cornett, which I disagreed, but like I didn't call it a horrendous take because he was playing really, really solid. Oh no, he played 3 years before this. But if I look at his per 36 minutes real quick, he's a very, very good player. So yeah, he averages 16 and 13 per 36 minutes, which I know can be a little inflated because you're going to get tired and everything. But I was very impressed with Keita. He protects the room really well. Maybe Gamba's a little too much. Can't really stretch the floor a ton like Cornet's. But he's young. I don't think he's going to really improve his shot that much, but I do think he has room to grow in his post game. Yeah, Tillman, Cornett, Keita, all 3 of them have something to offer, and I'm very, very excited to see what each of them can do because obviously this Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, Horford, all of them have just won a ring and they know exactly what to do. They know how to win a championship now. Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, they played big minutes maybe not Pritchard, but like yeah, they played big minutes in the finals. They know how to win. Even Cornett and Pritchard, they played big minutes during the regular season and in their early playoffs, not in the finals. They know how to win They know how to win games. So I'm really, really excited to see what the guys at the end of the bench can do to prove themselves. And I really don't think it's going to be a matter of the guys at the end of the bench just hijacking the offense. I think all of them know what to do. Joe Mazzulla is an amazing coach, and he knows what to prioritize winning. And I'm just really excited to see what all those guys can do. And shout out Lonnie Walker. I know that there's a chance that they're going to waive him due to the Exhibit 10 contract. I'd be shocked if that happened, though. So, yeah. I said I was going to talk about all the contenders, which I'm going to talk about a couple more. But, yeah, I'm going to go my Celtics tangent, of course. But everything about the Celtics I'm very excited for, except for the Porzingis injury. But I do think they have some good alternatives there, and I'm very excited to see how all 3 of them do because there's a chance that like when all 3 of those guys play at nights, at least one of them is going to play good. So I think that I trust Joe Mazzulla in his decision making there for who gets the minutes that night. So it'll be very interesting when that comes around. But I'm just hoping that Porzingis stays healthy until the end of the playoffs, though. Just because I know that Matt Bonner made a video on this today, and he doesn't believe that the Celtics can. Not that the Celtics can't win again without Porzingis, but that's not something you should necessarily gamble on, and I agree with that. After that, it's like a 2, 3, 4, maybe not a tie, but like in like that same tier is the Bucks, the Knicks, and the Sixers. I've been switching every day. I don't believe in the Knicks, and I know I've been a Knicks hater in the past, but I just don't believe in them now. I think that Isaiah Hartenstein injury is going to be big for them. That's especially with Mitchell Robinson probably going to be out for a while. I shouldn't say that. Like I can't say probably going to be out. But like I was projecting that, but I shouldn't really project that. But it's a risk for sure. President Chua is a good backup, but I think he should be a good backup on a team where they have like a really, really solid starting center. Which Mitchell Robinson is solid, but I don't think he's necessarily the guy that's going to take you to the promised land. So I'm impressed with the Knicks' depth and everything, but I don't believe in them to win the finals at all. if we're talking who has the best chance to win the finals, I think it's the Bucks. I think that Giannis, you need a superstar to win the finals. I think that Giannis is hands down the best player in the East. So yeah, I would say the order goes Celtics, Bucks. I'm putting the Sixers ahead of the Knicks. I'm sorry. They just added Paul George. Paul George is a better add than Mikal Bridges. Isaiah Hartenstein is lost, so I'm taking the Sixers ahead of the Knicks. After that, the Cavs, the Magic, the Pacers, the Heat, even. And I don't really know many of. I do know the teams, but I don't know. I don't really believe in many of them to overtake any like the playing teams to become playoff teams. But that'll be interesting. Yeah, we'll go West real quick because we're gonna have a couple more minutes. Yeah, I think the Thunder are the favorite. They added Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. I think they're the favorites to win the West. They were the first seed this year. Disappointed against the Mavs, but Game 6 did really come down to a debatable call at the end. So that could have gone Game 7. The Thunder could have beaten the Mavs. Again, could have. So like I'm not justifying the loss, but I'm saying it's something that could have ended up happening if just like one decision was changed. The Wolves I still believe in, especially because they're bringing the same team back. I'm really interested to see though how good they actually are. I don't necessarily think they're a lock to get past the first round. I think I'd be surprised if they didn't, but I wouldn't say they're a lock just because double bigs, especially with one that can't really shoot that much, does have its risks. The risk paid off this year, but I don't know if that's going to pay off again. But I do think that Anthony Edwards is going to take another jump. So yeah, I would be surprised, but I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be completely shocked. So I'll crunch back. Yeah, we only have a couple more minutes left, but
yeah, man. Sorry about that, man. Somebody called me and then my phone died.
Oh, it died. Oh shit. Okay. We only have a couple more minutes left, but yeah. Anything else you want to say to wrap it up? It could be about anything. It could be about Kyrie. It could be about anything else on the list. What do you think?
So real quick, I do want to say I think next season watch out for Dallas Mavericks again.
Okay.
I think them adding Klay Thompson is gonna help. Again, I do think, like you said earlier, man, I think Luka is the best player in the world. Okay. So that is a big reason why I picked him to go to the finals last season, and I'm sticking with it this season as long as Kyrie and Klay can stay healthy.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick at all. It's never a bad thing to gamble on the team that just made the finals. So I disagree. I'm taking a couple of teams over them, but it wouldn't shock me at all if the Mavs are back in the finals. They wouldn't be my pick, but I wouldn't be surprised given that they have two of the best bucket getters in the league. Yeah, Crunch, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna want to have you come on again just because both of us had the internet issues, but yeah, we'll talk about that off the air. As far goes for everyone else, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the All American Hoops podcast. Make sure to follow All American Hooper on all social media accounts on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to @SportsFluent to catch every episode on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. There are also some other great channels on this like on SportsFluent, including the Creators Hours on Fridays, Fluent and Chill on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. Ton of other great shows as well. So we're very, very fortunate to be part of this great program. And yeah, we'll finish up with like Jotan does. Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Call your mother. And I hope that everyone has an awesome night.